NAIA football is the true version of what college football is supposed to be. And it is the best classroom experience an 18 to 22-year-old male can have. One of the most valuable parts of a college education is that experience. It's life in a microcosm, and it's just something special for a young man to have to experience.
And don't you let a moment go without thinking about what's there for you to reach out and grasp.
Welcome into the Victory Sports Network. This is NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley. I'm the aforementioned Jason Dannelly, your host for this program, and we've got a crazy hour to go through here as we talk about all things in the world of NAIA football, coming off of a weekend that, well, frankly, there were some bad football games, but there were also some great football games. We're going to talk about all those, all the ones that matter, plus, you know, for every top 25 matchup that we did not have on the schedule this previous weekend, we've got it coming up this weekend because there's like 4 or 5 plus a whole bunch of other ones with teams just outside of the top 25 that we need to talk about. At this moment, I welcome in my co-host for the program. He is Pat Donley, former football coach, just all around great guy, buddy, pal. How's it going, man?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing splendid. It's
there
been
were exciting games.
There were games that were exciting that weren't supposed to be exciting.
No question.
And I love it.
Thank goodness for live streaming. I watch games in Michigan. I watched a game in Oregon, Georgia. It's so cool. I want to shout out the streaming services.
Yes.
That these institutions put forth. I mean, we couldn't have this podcast, Jason, and talk the way we do about these games, obviously, without it. And it's been a lot of fun. Had a blast last night and today watching these games. And there's some great ones. I'm excited to talk about it.
I want to give credit where credit is due because you and I watched some of the same games, and I went off on my own, watched some. But we both watched one of the same games. Lawrence Tech, they put on a phenomenal broadcast. Like sideline cameras, nice high view of the camera, like just not the result they wanted in a game, but the result that you want for a live stream of an NAIA football game. Like they're doing it right. That's a great job by Lawrence Tech there.
No question. It was a blast to watch. The game itself was awesome. And yes, I totally agree. Production value, and they have some sideline shots and aerial. And like you said, the sideline reporting, the whole 9 yards, really well done. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. And it just harkens back to, 2003 when I started doing 2002 when I started doing this. Like I had to travel to all the games to get any chance to understand what was going on, and I would see 1 or 2 games a week. I would love it. If I went to the Chicago area, could catch a 1:00 game, then drive 2 hours and catch a 7:00 game that night. Now, I was at my parents' place this weekend in Nebraska, and they're on a farm where we used to not have internet, and then we had barely internet. Now they've got high-speed internet, so I can watch these things in HD on Dad's big screen. It's awesome, and I'm sitting there traveling, being able to still watch 5, 6, 7, 8 games on the weekend. It was great.
Likewise, I was in the Detroit Metro with hockey, and I'm watching football, and it was fantastic. Breaks in between. I wanted to get over to Southfield to the Lawrence Tech Marion game. I was close. It just didn't work out. It had been too hard to get back in time, but boy, that was a fun game to watch. So where we're starting with these games to break them down, but there were some exciting ones, certainly.
Well, I've done some changes with some of the things that we typically, do and how some of our graphics look here to kind of condense things together because we kind of had the top performances. But sometimes we didn't talk about the game. Sometimes we talked about the game, but we didn't get into the performances. So I'm trying a new way of doing things this week. We're keeping things fresh on the show as we kind of go through some of these box scores. So not a full box score, but yesterday's NAIA football action started off at Reinhardt as they were taking on an undefeated Cumberland's football team. And this was a game where I looked at it going in, Pat, and I said, if Cumberland's gets this win, they're really setting themselves up well for the postseason. They'll be 3-0, they'll get things rolling. And this game did not start off good for Cumberland's. Reinhardt got out to a 28-0 lead in this game before Cumberland's came storming back, tied it up, got the lead at 31-28, and then Reinhardt just a little bit too much 14-yard touchdown reception by Cedric Cullers there at the end of the game. You watched this one, heck of a ball game.
The first half was a snooze fest, and the
Yeah.
second half was awesome. I mean, Reinhardt just methodical. They did some really good things and jumped out to that lead. Had a kick return for a touchdown, and then Cumberland's comes up the second half, and Coach Housekeeper lit a flame. Man, it was they were going. Blocked a punt for a touchdown, played significantly better offensively, and like you said, took the lead. Give credit to Reinhardt for running just a tremendous 2-minute drill. I mean, clockwork. Clocking they were out of timeouts, clocking the football to get stoppages, and just did a wonderful job. The last 2 throws, big time throws, and well executed by Reinhardt, and just a heartbreaker for Cumberland's to be down like that, come back, take the lead, the emotion of that, and then still fall short at the end. I think the final score is with 10 seconds left. I think that touchdown throw happened, but you got to tip your cap to Coach Miller and that crew for being resilient when it mattered at the end, because you give up points like that in the way that they did. You're like, you're just kind of deflated, and you have to respond and have that resolve to put together a drive like that at the end. You got to tip your cap to the Eagles on that, because that's a tough thing to do. It's like, man, we just can't catch a break, and you have to go out and execute in that situation and then do it. Very difficult.
Just the old win probability meter, seeing it go here, seeing it go here, seeing it go back up here and back down. I mean, pretty crazy ball game between those two.
It's a gambling feature, right? The win probability thing.
Yes.
I knew you had something going there.
I'm trying to figure out a way to incorporate into these games here. But, Reinhardt, huge credit to them. They were 1-2, just coming off of a loss to Southeastern just a couple weeks ago. Sitting 1-2, fell out of the top 25. I did hear their announcer say at the end of the broadcast, we'll see if we get back in the top 25. No offense, you're not getting back in the top 25 this week. There's too many undefeated teams out there that are probably catching some eyes before you. But Reinhardt's season, even at 2-2, far from over in the Appalachian Athletic Conference. They've got some tough games in front of them, and that's a league that still is wide open who could make that postseason challenge there. We go on to the next game. Go ahead.
Athletic team. They're a really athletic team.
Yes.
Speed. I mean, they can do some things, like you said, not to hold this game up and move on to the next, but in that conference, look out. I mean, that's a talented team. There's no doubt.
100%. We go on to the other game we've got up on the screen. 4-0 Marion, now still rated number 4, had to come from behind to fight off a very tough, very feisty Lawrence Tech team. Devon Bentley of Lawrence Tech, 325 yards, 2 touchdowns, just 17 carries. We're not talking 31, 35 carries to get over 325 yards. He broke some big plays. He was really had the Blue Devils going in this game, and late it looked like everything was going well for them. Their last touchdown, they missed the PAT, and that opens up the door for Marion to go the length of the field, go down, get that final score, and then hold Lawrence Tech with under a minute left to play from being able to really do anything offensively to get this win. So Marion squeaks by again with the victory, and end of the year, they don't ask how, they ask how many. You're 4-0, you got the win, but you kind of start looking at the Knights and saying, are they maybe not as strong as we thought they were? What are your thoughts on this game, Pat?
I think they're very well coached. I think
Yes.
they love Coach Karras, and you can see the character and the motivation from the sideline and that final drive again. And again, they have an opportunity to score, kick an extra point, they're going to win the game. Crazy thing though, if you remember that last drive, 4th and 8, about their own 30, kind of a face masking penalty on a pass rush. They had him dead to rights. It would have been a sack. It would be a face mask penalty. Automatic first down gives the Knights some life. Get the ball with near midfield at that point, the new set of downs, and continues that drive. There's some big plays, big throws made, by the Marion offense. Exciting finish. But I want to talk about Lawrence Tech. I agree with you, Jason. I like what they're doing. I think you've got some speed. The Detroit Metro. Fun fact for you. I did some research on this. Top 3 cities that produce NFL talent. Detroit's one of them. So it tells you there is talent in that metro. I mean, obviously the NFL, but even it trickles down to all levels. There is tons of speed and talent in that area. And you see like the Bentley kid, the receiving core that they have at Lawrence Tech, these guys can run. I mean, there's significant speed. The DBs that they have, the return game, you see there's guys that can really get after speed. They got some cooking there. It's weird to see them on 3. I think they're well coached. I think this new staff, I love what they're doing. The balance on offense. I think they run well to the football. This was a heck of a football game, and it's so odd to see them 0-3. And I think this is something they can build on and being a thorn in the side of a lot of folks in this Mid-States Football Association. I was very impressed.
Yeah.
And like you said with Marion, it's a great football team. This is a perennial power. This is a team that competes for the national championship every single year. That's this program's goal, without question. And they got some things to fix, certainly. I mean, you give that many yards up on the ground, that's alarming. That's something you have to really look at yourself and the self-evaluation of what you're doing. And I know they're going to do that. They're a good football staff, and it's a good program, but they've got some big games coming up, and they've got to get some things ironed out, certainly.
I would, and it's cliche to say, but like Lawrence Tech, best 0-3 team in the NAIA. I mean, from what I've seen of teams that are sitting 0-3 right now, they look good. I think Coach Merchant, what he's done in his first year up there, I think they're only going to improve. I mean, you're talking about, kind of a legendary Michigan high school coach, a lot of ties to the area. If you've got that talent in those areas to be able to recruit, bring in, I mean, it's the things are trending up, and that's not to take anything away from Avante Mitchell in the years that he coached at Lawrence Tech and now at Olivet Nazarene. But sometimes a change in leadership and style is what a program needs to take themselves to the next level.
Coach Merchant's interview at halftime, Jason?
I did not know.
Really sharp. I mean, just you can see there's direction, there's communication, there's a plan there. I was very impressed. Don't know him at all. I've been out of it, and he's, coming from the high school ranks, but very, very sharp. And you can tell there's leadership there. And again, Coach Mitchell did a wonderful job at Lawrence Tech. Heck, he beat us my last time playing Lawrence Tech. Did a great job. But you can see there's something going there. And I've always said that's a hidden gem. In that area, it's the west side of Detroit. It's close to some great high school football connections there. It's a little bit of a niche because there's so many Division IIs in that area, but yeah, it's a great engineering school. It's a feeder into some of the auto industry opportunities and internships. It's a cool deal. And I think there's something going there. I was very, very impressed.
Yeah. Also not shocking that an engineering school has a really good web stream. I mean,
you're right.
It's kind of like, well, they better, actually. Going on to our next games that we have here. Top 25, or number 25, St. Francis, Illinois, now 3-0 after knocking Concordia down 44-7. This was a game that I thought coming into. Concordia has really been up and down this year. That we've talked about it at length. We don't need to go much any further into it. They've kind of got their backs against the wall, but I thought this was a game they were really going to fight in. And 21-7 after the first, and then didn't score the rest of the game. Their quarterback throws for 268, goes for 138 on the yard, on the ground, 4 touchdowns again. I mean, St. Francis is looking really good. They've got some tough tasks coming up in their schedule, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But they get the win in this one. And the other USF, this one in Illinois, sitting undefeated right now and towards the top of the Mid-States Midwest Division.
It's going to lead us into a huge matchup this weekend. That I'm looking forward to with St. Francis, Illinois. The Tumulties, they're good football players. They're exciting to watch. They're winning. It's consistent right now. That they're putting points on the board. They're defending well. I think a really, really great test is going to be this weekend. 2 teams that are playing very well and scoring a lot of points. I'm anxious to see that matchup. We're going to talk about that a little bit later.
In the Midwest, we had weather this weekend. We didn't have weather back on the farm in Nebraska, but just south of us, once you got into Lincoln, and then you got into that corner of Nebraska, and you got into Kansas, and you got into Missouri, they were dealing with weather issues all weekend long. Several games got moved from evening games to early afternoon games. Then we also had, games that did get played at night that had weather delays. This was one of the games that got moved up to 11 o'clock for a start. So a little bit of a change of plans, maybe for, Graceland and their travels to Olathe. Mid-American Nazarene comes away with a 38-24 victory. Adrian Parsons, 25 for 39, 263 yards, 3 touchdowns, 27 yards on the ground and a touchdown there. Parsons really, they've had some good quarterbacks come through Mid-American Nazarene. He's definitely towards the top of the list. And in fact, statistically, he's at the top of the list of several categories. Mid-American Nazarene rolling, really starting to take a hold in that Hart division where you've got Baker, you've got Benedictine, you've got some really good teams that are going to start playing one another in the next couple weeks. And Mid-American Nazarene able to stay on task after being down to Graceland early in this game. A good win for the Pioneers and their staff to stay undefeated and keep rolling in the Hart.
Great quarterback play. That's a big deal at any level of football. And like you said, 3-0. This is one of those kind of teams that are kind of just kind of laying in the weeds at around that 19-20 spot, and they're 3-0 and they're moving the football and scoring points. And like you said, there's going to be some big matchups coming up here soon.
Yep. Moving on, we go to Siena Heights, who is now 0-4. As we talked about this weekend, it was moving day for some teams. Siena Heights either needed to move into the win column. St. Francis of Indiana needed to move themselves, kind of back into that above 500 record. They did that. They came away with a 32-10 victory. You see the statistics there. You see everything. The one statistic we don't have, win number 350 for head coach Kevin Donley as St. Francis beats Siena Heights. Pat, Any thoughts on this game? I know you were in Detroit, so you weren't able to see this one up close and in person.
I was watching on the iPad live. I would say this is the cleanest game USF has played thus far in game 3. They found a quarterback. It's been a quarterback change. This Josh Kulka is a transfer from Wayne State. He's a Detroit Metro kid who transfers a 2-year starter at Wayne State. It transferred into USF this year and has really lit a fire. He's throws at a good football, really athletic kid. I think he's moving forward is the player there. I mean, he was conference player of the week last week, playing a half. And that's the kind of numbers he put up. And then he got to start this week. And they played all 3 quarterbacks in this game, Jason. I mentioned it in our preview, they have 3 guys that are legitimate NAIA starting quarterbacks. And Kulka has kind of taken over here and done very, very well. And thank you for mentioning that about Dad. Pretty cool. I was going to, if you didn't, 350. That's a lot of darn wins, man.
Yeah.
That's a bunch of them.
I mean, if you just even think about like the number of coaches that have coached 350 games, like that's a pretty short list. And to have won 350, holy cow. So, I mean, tremendous. He continues to, move that NAI record up. And it'll be a conversation for, if and when he retires. Is there anybody that can catch that number? I mean, it's going to take a while. It's going to be a while, especially in the world of we're seeing fewer and fewer coaches stick around for 20, 30 years at a program.
Number 5 all time, too, at all levels. Pretty cool.
Yes, it is absolutely amazing. Also in the Mid-States Football Association, a game that I said, Olivet Nazarene, they've played pretty well this year. They've challenged some teams. They could put some resistance up to Indiana. What they did not.
No.
This was a game 55-0 after the first quarter. Indiana Wesleyan's playing their backup quarterback, and I'm assuming that's pronounced Arjun Lothi. I didn't watch this game for obvious reasons because by the time I looked at it, it was already 42-0, and I said I have no reason to watch this game. He threw for 374 yards, 5 touchdowns. Isaac Smith, 5 receptions, 162 yards. This game ended up being 12-minute quarters in the second half. The coaches agreed to cut the time down and kind of get this one going, and Indiana Wesleyan just blowing the doors off of Olivet Nazarene in this game.
I think they were angry. They were mad about losing to Valparaiso last week, which I did not think would happen. I think Indiana Wesleyan's a more talented team than Valparaiso. I've not seen Valpo play. I just watched Indiana Wesleyan in person. Like they're a very, very good football team, like a top 10, like we've talked about, top 10 level team in this affiliation. Like they're that good. And can't wait to see the huge matchup next week, St. Francis, Illinois, and Indiana Wesleyan going at it. That's going to be awesome.
So one we'll talk about. Yeah. And I think they're angry at me because I've got no less than 10 DMs from Indiana Wesleyan fans around the world of this was our backup quarterback, 12-minute. This is how I know this information is off DMs from fans and then verifying it. And also, how could you not pick us to win the conference? You picked Concordia. What were you thinking? Well, I make prognostications, and at the time, it seemed like a good idea. Hindsight being what it is, it was a bad idea. Indiana Wesleyan looking very good in the Mid-East Division of the Mid-States Football Association. We move back to the Midwest for Grandview, who just methodically beat down Missouri Valley in this game. The Vikings played very tough, but they just got worn down by Grandview, much like many teams do when they face the Grandview Vikings, who are now 3-0. 10-0 at half, 14 points in that final quarter. Jackson Waring, 232 through the air, and Dalton Van Pelt, 106 yards rushing in this game for Grandview as they stay perfect on the year.
Shocker. Grandview defense pitches a shutout.
Yeah.
Shocker, right?
You know,
I'd be Grandview way.
I'd be interested to see in the last 10 years if anybody has more shutouts.
I couldn't
than
imagine.
Grandview. I can't.
Or there's any way.
No.
At any level, maybe.
Without even like looking at the numbers and thinking of other teams, that's where all of my money would go. We go back to the South, Campbellsville. Undefeated 4-0, a perfect 18 for 18 for Jagger Gillis in this game. 204 yards, 3 touchdowns. Luke Shepardson had 5 catches, 71 yards, 2 touchdowns. This was a game where Bluefield did give some resistance in this game. It was kind of what I thought it would be. I thought Bluefield would come out, they would challenge Campbellsville, and then Campbellsville would have to prove in the second half, are we the better team? Are we truly 3-0? Do we deserve to be 4-0? They did. They come away with that 69-37 victory.
Good on Campbellsville, man. Campbellsville's place is like I've always like admired. You know, it's a cool campus. It's like there's always good guys that coach there. They always score points, which I'm an offensive guy. I love that.
Yep.
They always score points. So 4-0, it's exciting. I know they got some big games coming up as well, but what a great start to this season for the Campbellsville Tigers. It's fun to see.
I haven't been to Campbellsville in 15 years, probably, but traveling. Yeah. Back in the day, love that town. Fun little, Kentucky community, beautiful campus, and they've made some major upgrades. From 2003 or 2004, my first time visiting, to now just Campbellsville sitting at 4-0, a team to be reckoned with. As we move on, one of their other featured games that we looked at last week was Cumberland and Florida Memorial. Florida Memorial came out, got the lead early in this one, but Cumberland steadied themselves up, was able to even things up as we got through the second and third quarters there, and then just pulled away from Cumberland. Florida Memorial couldn't come back in the fourth quarter. Cumberland with that 47-35 victory. Luke Holloway, 11 of 12 passing, 85 yards, a touchdown, ran for 161. Dual threat quarterback, had himself 3 touchdowns. Walter Wilbin of Florida Memorial, 24 carries, 178 yards, 3 touchdowns for the Lions. A nice performance from him. He's a guy that can tote the rock for Florida Memorial. He's got a tall task this next week when they take on St. Thomas, but a game that went close to how I thought it would be. I believe I picked Florida Memorial to win this game. But Cumberland, they showed a lot in this game getting the victory, and they're sitting pretty good in the Mid-South Conference going in now to week 5 undefeated.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Ooh. Has Cumberland, since they've started this program, I'd say 20-some years ago, maybe 25, have they ever started 4-0, I wonder?
It's been a while. They have, because Dwayne Alexander was their coach in the mid-2000s.
Right.
They ran, kind of almost like a double wing, flex offense. They, I do want to say one year they were like 7-0 or 8-0.
Okay.
They started off. So, but they have, their program has been very streaky. It's been a couple years winning records, on the verge of making the postseason, maybe just being held out of it, and then some years where they weren't even in a discussion. They're back in the discussion this year. Moving on to the Frontier Conference, Montana Tech gets a victory on the road at Eastern Oregon to improve to 3-0, 45-22. Blake Thielen, 13 of 18 in this game, 238 yards, 4 touchdowns. Wyatt Alexander, 128 yards receiving. Maybe more importantly, the running game for Montana Tech, very spread out amongst 5 or 6 running backs. They kind of limiting Smith and the number of carries. I think he only had 14 carries in this. No, he did not have 40 carries.
Coach kept his promise. That's good. Balance it out.
Just one game later than what he said he had hoped to, but they jumped out on Eastern Oregon in this game, got up big at halftime, held on. Montana Tech is going to have a good one coming up this week. I'm just excited to talk about this week's games.
I'm with you.
just keep rolling through these. Dakota State undefeated 4-0. They beat Valley City State in Valley, North Dakota, or Valley City, North Dakota. Dakota State loses their starting quarterback last week in the game. No worries. They're just going to run the ball and run it with Tice Ortman 30 times for 160 yards and a touchdown as the Trojans get this 19-18 win. Big win for Dakota State, who, again, 1-9, 1-10 last year. They did not look good as a football program. Josh Anderson, keeping things on the straight and narrow, keeping everything in front of him, building a program, great facilities in Madison, South Dakota. Dakota State at 4-0. Looking really good this year, and you like to see it. You like to see parity, Pat, in these leagues.
The biggest turnaround in this year. Fantastic. It's great to see. And like you said, I've heard you talk about that campus and setting there at Dakota State, and good for them. It's so great when you see, like you said, the parity and the response from struggling and coming back, start out 4-0, man. That's so cool to see. Being a perennial power like Valley City.
I was only able to catch the last 5 minutes of this game because I'll be completely honest. I thought Montana Western would go into Lewis and Clark and just handle Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark was 1-1. They're a D3 school in that Northwest League. They're weren't picked in the top hat, or they weren't picked to win that league. So I just kind of felt like, okay, Montana Western, they'll go on the road, they'll get this one with ease. Lewis and Clark put up quite a bit of resistance to the Bulldogs in this game, tied after one, and late in this ball game, it was in question. I did tune in for about the last 7 minutes of this game, and Western was able to get down the field, get a score, get control of this game. But I'm frankly shocked, one, that their defense gave up 39 points to Lewis Clark, and that this game was as close as it was. Again, survive and advance, you get the win. You're still one of the top-rated teams in the country, so everything is fine there. But maybe a little high off that win last week over College of Idaho, and then having to go on the road to play a D3 program this week.
I almost guarantee that's what happened. And these are learning experiences. These are still, I call them kids. They're kids to us now, Jason. College kids. And Montana Western, the program that they're building, and we have seen this progression over the last few years. And these opportunities and games like this are a great learning opportunity for them. Because again, you play this in this league. We talk about it all the time. We could do a podcast just talking about this conference. Mm-hmm. And if you play a D3, it's like, we can loosen the belt and kind of hang out. And well, there you go. This is a great learning opportunity for this coaching staff to say, hey, we got to show up every single week and play up to our standard. So I'm assuming that's what happened here. And hopefully, the Bulldogs learn from this lesson.
And I'll guarantee the conversation is something around, if we show up in our league and we play the way that we did against that team, there's only maybe 2 teams in that league that won't beat them. But I'm not saying they will. Don't send me your hate mail, Bulldog fans. You like to sometimes like to stretch my words and what I'm saying. Montana Western, really good football team. Still one of my picks that I think could win a national championship. Just calm. Oh, you're good. You're good. Don't send me hate mail.
Learn from the experience. Move on.
I believe our last slide before we get to our featured game of the week, the big one that we kind of previewed a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit more about here momentarily. Kansas Wesleyan in this ball game had the lead late. They were up 26-25. Friends goes down with a couple minutes left. They line up for a field goal to take the lead. Kansas Wesleyan blocks it. Kansas Wesleyan moves the ball a little bit after that, end out punting. The ball's down on the 1-yard line. They pinned them deep. You did everything you wanted to do on special teams. Special teams play for Kansas Wesleyan in this game. A returned kick for a touchdown, another big kick return, blocked field goal, all the things you want your special teams to do. Pin them down on the 1-yard line. What does Friends do? Well, they get down the field. They get all the way down and kick a 40-yard field goal as time expires to win this game 28-26. So Friends, had this game won, then lost, then won, then lost again, and then came back and won it. Cavante Baker, 110 yards on the ground. Elias Pino, 134, and Cole Thompson hit that 40-yard field goal. So Friends remains undefeated, and Kansas Wesleyan drops to 1-3 as they continue in KCAC play. The other game on the screen, Texas Wesleyan going to Oklahoma Panhandle, Goodwell, Oklahoma, a place that I've been, Pat, and played college football in this stadium. It looks tremendously better than what it did when I played there, and I was rolling in red dirt and watching a dog run away for 3 days off the west there. We got beat too. Like, we went down there. The famous last words when I played at Oklahoma Panhandle in 2001, I think it was, we roll into this town. We're like, man, we lose to these guys, we suck. We lost. And guess what? We sucked.
Yeah.
It was not good. Sorry. Anyway, Texas Wesleyan.
The days of Dana.
Dana, hats off to thee. Sorry. Texas Wesleyan gets the win. This game early on, Oklahoma Panhandle did what I thought they'd fought. They played them tight. This was, 7-0, 7-7, 14-7. Texas Wesleyan gets a score, kind of sits that way going into halftime, and then just opened it up in the second half. And honestly, when they scored 21 points in the third quarter is when I shut it off and just waited for this game to get over. They get the 49-21 victory to stay perfect in the Sooner Athletic Conference. And right now, Texas Wesleyan driving the ship in the Sooner. They are undefeated. They beat Ottawa of Arizona, OUAZ. They beat
Lindsey Wilson.
They beat Lindsey Wilson. So they look like the best team in the conference.
No doubt. They're a good team. I watched that entire Lindsey Wilson game a handful of weeks ago. They are a good football team rolling along.
Everybody, as we always talk about in this program, if you have comments, if you have thoughts, if you have questions, throw them up there on the screen. If I get them to actually, if I can actually see your comments and questions, we'll get those answered and we'll talk about them. But the game that Pat and I want to sink our teeth into and talk about, that we both watched, I watched the entirety of this game, and then I went back and watched little pieces of it again just to make sure I was seeing things correctly. What a game. What a performance from Southern Oregon. Coach Burke Brown, the Raiders out in Ashland, Oregon, getting the victory over number 9 College of Idaho, 45-27. The Yotes tried to do a lot of things to Southern Oregon, but defensively, SOU, great game plan to go up against that high-powered offense of College of Idaho. And offensively, this was an offense that I've always looked at Southern Oregon, Pat, and I'm going like 9 different places here. But I always thought of Southern Oregon and how I'd seen them play this year and in previous years, kind of defense first. The offense is going to, build off that, get things done. They've got some good ball players, but this isn't going to be a team that's going to wow you with their explosiveness. They wowed me with their explosiveness yesterday. This was a quality football team. And in the Victory Sports Network Top 25, I can already tell you they're going to be much higher than number 20 next week.
It's one of those programs, and we had Coach Brown on a few months ago, and we were so impressed with him. Excited about watching this team this year. But we haven't really talked about him a whole lot. Obviously, we previewed this game last week as the obviously top 25 matchup. This is a real deal football team. And we talked about the amount of teams in the Frontier Conference that can win the league. This is another one. I'm telling you right now, with what they put together, they're getting back to their roots. Because when I think of Southern Oregon, Jason, I think, Southern Oregon won the national championship 10 years ago that set all kinds of offensive records and just threw it at will, balance of run and pass, the great quarterback play, always the strong running game is the balance. They're getting back to that. I mean, look at the balance. Look at the stats. It tells you the story. I mean, just like college football 25 on PS5, stats. I mean, it's unbelievable. I have the game, by the way. It's a blast. Anyway,
You do?
it's so great, by the way. It's back, man. 10 years off, 44, and still playing video games. Hey, here we go.
I wish I had it. That's what you
Look
get
at those
when you have
stats,
a 1-year-old.
Jason.
Sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
crazy stats.
Crazy stats. And it was so fun and huge plays in the running game. I mean, kind of weird plays like 4th and 1 plays. And College of Idaho thinks they have Yates stopped, and there he shoots out and he goes 50 for a touchdown. I mean, how many long touchdowns did Yates have? I mean,
I think 4. I think all of his, yeah.
I think at least 3 of them were like 40 plus. I mean, they're huge runs. I mean, just big time plays. And let's go back. We talked about, you mentioned the defense. Coach Stint, Tyler Stint, good Indiana guy. We recruited him at St. Francis, ended up going to Marion. We lost that battle. Then we had to deal with him as a player. Then we had to deal with him as a defensive coordinator there for a bunch of years. Now at Southern Oregon, had a wonderful game plan. You can see one of the best players in NAIA. We've talked about Andy Peters a lot in the show. they had an answer for everything. I mean, Andy's making throws. You can see just pinpoint accuracy throws, but then there's a defender getting a hand on the football, defending things very tightly, making things very difficult for Peters from a ball accuracy standpoint, getting the ball out on time because of pressure. You can see they're getting after the pass rush. Just everything that they did was very well planned and executed from a game plan standpoint. Coach did a great job, man. I thought was very, very impressed. And again, we talked about the offense. So you have both sides of it really, really clicking here for Southern Oregon. And we talked about, man, drinking the Kool-Aid. Like Coach Brown, he talked. Yeah. I'm like, I'm on board. Let's go play.
Yeah. Well, in our conversation with him, I'm sitting there like, God, he's passionate
awesome
about you could feel it, passionate about the program, passionate about Raider football, loves the area, got the family there. This is, kind of he's had some ability to build the program with him as the head coach now, being there a couple years. And, this was a great signature win. Now, the thing that you always have to make sure in these programs that, not that Southern Oregon has newfound success, but this group of kids has not been to a national title. They have not been deep into the playoffs. Now you got to put it together back to back to back weeks. That's where you look at a team like Montana Western and they pull up a game like they did this week against Lewis and Clark, and you go, ooh, cause for concern. But Western has had some success these last couple of years. These kids have put it together week after week after week. Southern Oregon is just kind of in that new phase, and they've got some big games coming up on their schedule. I mean, this was a huge one as it is, but there's a lot of rated teams and a lot of good football being played in the Frontier. They've got to figure out a way to put it together week after week after week. And, we go to the other side here. We talk about College of Idaho. Here's a team that high praise at the beginning of the season, still high praise. This is still a great football team. But, you lose to some of the top teams in the conference. Now, you don't get talked about as much because you got to beat, as tough as the league is, you've got to beat the top teams in the conference if you're going to be in contention come postseason. They're still a top 25 program. They're still a top 20 team. But, they've got some work to do. The offensive line struggled against Southern Oregon defensively. They got ran on 293 yards by Gunnar Yates. I looked it up while we were talking there. His shortest touchdown run was 10 yards. Everything else was, long, big bursts, big wins.
Yeah, College of Idaho has some tackling issues. There's some run fit stuff that they've got to look at. And again, we talked about Marion before. They've got to look at their run fit schemes and make sure they're dotting I's and crossing T's. I think there's some issues there. And like you said, College of Idaho, 2 weeks in a row now, here we are. And this is, welcome to the Dannelly and Donley podcast about the Frontier Conference.
Yeah.
NAIA that's Frontier Conference. We can talk about this the entire time. And every week we're going to have these huge matchups. And like, I know you had your Twitter battle last week with Montana Western folks, but it's like, this is all going to work out.
Yes.
They're all going to play. I mean, it's an insanely good conference. I mean, look at this. I mean, every single week we're having these marquee matchups, and sometimes 2 or 3 in a week. And we're going to figure this thing out. And there's going to be unbelievable regular season games. There's going to be rematches in the playoffs. I mean, there's going to be cool stuff down the road here in this league.
Yeah, I'm absolutely stoked for the level of football that we're about to start seeing, not just from the Frontier, but from the NAIA. And I led the show with it. There were some good games this weekend. There weren't big, sexy games. Like, this was a big, sexy game. It was the only one on the schedule. There's some other good games. That's why we talked about them, brought them up. But, in the Great Plains Athletic Conference, are we done with this game? Or are we moving on? I just want to look at you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Okay. I just want to look at you face to face.
Yeah.
So, so Pat, my home conference, yes, I did play in the GPAC way back in 2001 in its inception. Or did I? Did I never play? I got it. I can't. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The winners this week in that conference outscored the losers. What was my tweet? 264 to 27. I mean, that's what I'm talking about when it's like there were games played this weekend, but there weren't a lot of great games. And I'll pick on the GPAC because, I know a lot of those guys, and I think they know what I mean. Like there were just some blowouts, some matchups and it all fell on the same week. And the best game in the Great Plains Athletic Conference was probably number 2 Northwestern taking on Midland, who has now lost to the top 3 teams in that conference. They've lost to Dordt, they've lost to Morningside, and they've lost to Northwestern. They only lose to Northwestern 17-7. It was not a great week for football in that conference, but it's all about to get better as we start to put this week behind us. We get through the top 25 and we'll preview the games for this week. So I don't know where I'm going with this, Pat. Sometimes like I'm the host and I just take it off the rails myself and I look at you to like bring it back for me. And I think you're just like, nope, this is you, Dan.
It's fun you go, bud.
Take me off the screen. I don't want people to think I said these things. So top 25, we'll go through this real quick. Nothing big, out of the top 5 here. Marion struggles a little bit. Well, not a little bit. They struggled with Lawrence Tech. I will be interested to see how they play this week against Taylor. Then you've got number 4 Montana Western playing Southern Oregon this week. Another big game as we start looking at the big games for this week. 6 through 10, Bethel had a bye. St. Thomas had a bye. Bethel will get tested this week at Bluefield. Indiana Wesleyan is going to play at St. Francis, Illinois. This is kind of a statement game, I think, for St. Francis, which we'll talk more about here in a little bit. College of Idaho, no break for them. They lose on the road. Now they're going to play at home against Montana Tech. That'll be a great game. And a sneaky good game that I think you need to keep your eye on is that number 10 matchup, Dordt at Concordia. That could be a good one as well. St. Xavier, little resistance from Madonna. Morningside, no resistance from Doane. Benedictine gets by St. Ambrose pretty easily here. Georgetown had a bye. They go to Reinhardt this week. We'll talk about that game. Evangel did not play, postponed due to weather. Again, they're never going to play that game. It's not like they're going to say on a Wednesday of a game week, oh yeah, let's make that one up. They'll go to Ottawa this week. Baker gets a lopsided win over Culver Stockton. Mid-American Nazarene, Southern Oregon, rounding out the top 20 there. They get wins. Again, Baker goes to Benedictine this week. That'll be a great game. And we already talked about Montana Western and Southern Oregon. They're going to lock horns this week. 21 through 25, Friends gets that victory over Kansas Wesleyan. They go to Tabor, who had a late game. You don't see the score there because, well, I went to bed last night before that one was over. 42-0. Southwestern beat Tabor in that ball game. They'll get Friends this week. Dickinson had a bye. They'll go to Jamestown, who lost to Mayville State this week, 26-20. Had an opportunity on the last play of the game to catch a touchdown pass. They're out of bounds on that. So Dickinson will take on Jamestown this week. And then we talked about St. Francis and Indiana Wesleyan. That rolls us, well, I guess that rolls us into the look who's still undefeated. I would tell you at the beginning of the year, I would not have picked Taylor on my bingo card. I would not picked Dakota State on my bingo card. Cumberland, I'm not completely shocked. Their schedule set up well for this. Campbellsville was one that I thought would do well early in the season. Undefeated, that's a pretty good start to the season for them. And Bethel of Kansas is one that I also did not think they would be undefeated at this time, in St. Francis of Illinois.
Yeah, you could say arguably all of them. In a lot of ways. This Taylor Marion game, I guess we'll preview here, is going to be a game. I'm telling you, it's going to. There's some matchups this week that are very interesting. St. Francis of Illinois and in Indiana Wesleyan, they're going to be. This is a great week upcoming, no doubt.
We got them previewed in front of us. The featured games for this week. There's 4 big ones, all top 25 matchups. Montana Western going to Southern Oregon, Pat. Let's start with that one. Western, little wake-up call. Probably the worst thing to happen to Southern Oregon. If you're Southern Oregon, you probably wanted, Montana Western go to Lewis Clark, win that game 60-3, and be all confident coming into Ashland. Great opportunity for Southern Oregon with a big home game here to get that home field advantage working their way.
One other point on that, I think what Southern Oregon put on tape is eyebrow raising and something Montana Western has to look at and say, we better buckle up and have a tight plan to defend the run game and the balance that the Red Raiders have from an offensive standpoint. And that defense, I'm telling you, Coach Stin gets those guys froth at the mouth and play very, very tough physical defense in Southern Oregon.
That is going to be just, I love that. I'm excited to watch football Saturday already. The Bulldogs and the Raiders Frontier Conference game. That's an awesome one. But then, we've talked about, we should do a Blue Blood podcast. Well, two of the teams that would be Blue Bloods that we talk about on that podcast would be the next game that's a featured game in NAIA football, Baker and Benedictine. I don't know if the blood is more blue than Baker and Benedictine in
Royal
NAIA
blue.
football. It's like royal blue.
Right.
The Royals lose today.
Sorry,
again.
man.
They're going to completely screw themselves out of the postseason. I'm a Royals fan too, by the way, folks. And sorry. Anyway, back to NAIA football. You can get me fired up on this, Pat.
Raiders. Sorry.
I'm pretty. I now got to look at my phone. How bad did they lose to Carolina today?
Carolina Panthers.
36-22, the worst team in the NFL. The Panthers
the
were. Andy Dalton back after it again. Let's not resurrect his career. Let's do that, Raiders. Anyway, NAIA football. Baker Benedictine. You're talking great quarterbacks in this game with Dooley and Julesgaard going up against one another. Solid defenses, got a lot of great skill position players. Plus, this is like when we talk about best rivalries in NAIA football, this one also up there. Top 10, top 5. These teams have been epic battling against one another, from the Charlie Richard, Larry Wilcox days. I mean, Charlie Richards, pardon me. Classic
How many times
game in the heart of
played?
America.
Give me an idea.
Oh, not off the top of my head now, but I mean,
70s, 80 times?
Well, you got to consider Benedictine did not resurrect their program until the 70s. So really, since then, has been that rivalry.
Before, correct? Like in the olden days,
way back.
Helmet days.
I believe so. Yes,
Baker played
Baker's been
since 1890s or something, right?
Yeah, Baker's been playing football since they made the shape of a football. I mean,
right.
they're one of the storied, longest lived programs in NAIA football. Baker and Ottawa and everybody in that area. The old KCAC. Wasn't Kansas Wesleyan and those. I mean, it was, Kansas. It was, they were playing Fort Hays State in that conference back in the day. But this will be a fantastic one in NAIA football. Looking forward to what, these two coaches can cook up in Hart Conference play this next week. We go back to the Frontier Conference for another featured game. Number 12, Montana Tech, taking on College of Idaho. Those ratings are going to change a little bit once we get later in the week and the coaches poll comes out. But Montana Tech, we've watched them several times this year. Man, they're physical. College of Idaho, they played a physical game this last week against Southern Oregon. They've got some things that they've got to straighten out if they're going to be successful against Montana Tech. They do get this game in Idaho at College of Idaho, so that plays to their advantage, I think, a little bit in this game, Pat.
I think you used the term slobberknocker football last week, referring to something. I can't remember if it was Montana Tech or not, but that's going to be one of those games. I mean, I think this is going to be a physical game. And like you said, College of Idaho just coming off of the game against Southern Oregon, which was physical. I'm anxious to see how they can respond. And I tell you what, backs against the wall here for the Coyotes, man. Right? I mean, where we are here, and really was this week 4 coming up technically. I mean, backs against 5, 4
or 5. We're still in September.
Week 0. Yeah, we're still September, and their backs are against the wall in this league already. And they're a Final Four team last year, and they're still in my opinion, my evaluation, watch them a playoff level without question team, and they're getting down to it. You drop 3 in a row. I mean, I don't know.
It's a little tough.
It's tough. There's big ones coming down the road still.
The thing is about the last week's game against Southern Oregon, that is actually technically not a Frontier Conference game. It's that one's technically the non-conference. The conference game, guess what? They get to play again the last week of the season, right before the playoffs.
Right. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that goofy one. Yeah.
But and I kind of had spaced it off there too, and that's the thing about the Frontier Conference next year. When they kind of start dividing into the divisions, they'll still be playing one another, but what will actually be in the conference and conference games, that's going to cause all sorts of chaos too. I love it. I love the competitiveness and the chaos that can be and is the Frontier Conference every year.
Thank you for the parody, Frontier Conference.
Yes.
So many good ones.
After the last week of watching games, and I'm just going 70-0, 63-7, like some of the, and then like, oh, here we come. It's in front of us now. Indiana Wesleyan, Mid-States Football Association action. Indiana Wesleyan laid it to Olivet Nazarene. St. Francis kind of put it on Concordia, two undefeated teams. Opposite divisions going up against one another here. St. Francis, I really think it's got an opportunity to prove like, hey, we're a top 25 team, and we've got an opportunity to do that against Indiana Wesleyan. But Wesleyan, they look pretty salty, Pat.
Yeah, in my opinion, I was very surprised. And again, most people out there wouldn't think it'd be a big deal them losing to an FCS school. I was very shocked. I mean, I'm from this region. Even though Valpo kind of recruits nationally because it's the FCA, or FCS school, it's a Lutheran college, it's whatever. I was shocked by the score. I think Indiana Wesleyan has a better roster than Valparaiso University. So I think that was, them kind of, not really being at their best dropping that game. Then you can see them, the response and kicking things in gear and really taking it to Olivet. This one to me is interesting because I don't know how this is going to go. I really don't. Mm-hmm. In that I think Indiana Wesleyan is a top 10 talented team. Like I've seen them in person. They're a good football team. But look at St. Francis. I mean, they are doing some things that we're taking notice. We're seeing the production. We're seeing them compete against good football teams and moving the ball, scoring points, winning these games. This is one I would not touch if I was a gambling guy. I have no idea where it would go. I really don't. And I think being in Joliet is interesting, but I don't know. If you tell me St. Francis wins by a field goal at the end of the game, I go, awesome. Great football game. I want to watch that start to finish. Or if Indiana Wesleyan beats them by 3 scores, I wouldn't be surprised either. It's one of those things I couldn't tell you. I have no idea where this is going to go. I really don't.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree. I think the advantage for Indiana Wesleyan is, they've played Olivet Nazarene, who has had some good games this year. They beat St. Francis, Indiana, who is a quality football team. I look at the resume for St. Francis, Illinois, the Saints this year. Outside of playing Concordia last week, their resume has not been great for those victories. So they haven't seen the physicalness. They haven't seen the toughness maybe that Indiana Wesleyan has in some of their games against, Valparaiso and St. Francis this year. I mean, they got tested. St. Francis is definitely going to get tested this week in Joliet. And I'm like you, I usually come out with my picks right away Monday morning. Anybody that's, paying attention to this show right now, those are going to be delayed because these 4 games right here, I'm looking at it and I can make a strong argument for any one of these 8 teams to win the featured game that they're in. I mean, it's just that good, that competitive this week in NAIA football. So I love it. And these are just the featured games. I've got a whole slide here of other games you should keep your eye on. If it was any other week, if it was this last week, these would be the featured games. You got Marion undefeated going to an undefeated Taylor, who just laid one on Kentucky Christian this last week. Taylor's been playing really tough football this season, Pat. And, Marion, they've kind of been on the ropes a couple times. This is a game you got to keep your eye on.
I'm going to tell you from experience, firsthand experience, Taylor University is different at home too. They are better at home. They are better at home. And I hope it's not fall break, because if it's not fall break and the students are there, it's going to be awesome. And I can guarantee you that will be a dogfight. I swear to you. I think Taylor's got something cooking, and it has the Mid-States Football Association freaked out. I know it, because this is not something that is typical. They're always going to give you their best. They're going to be well coached and well prepared. But there's always going to be an athletic gap. Just is against the Marions, the St. Francis's, the Concordias, the Indiana Wesleyans over the years. But now we're seeing something different, and this is going to be a good one. I'm telling you.
I'm telling you, like if I got put into a coma in 2015 and I woke up today and this was on my screen and you say, Jason, who's going to win? I go, Marion will win this game by 30. That ain't the case this year. No. I look at how Taylor has played and how competitive they be. This will be a tough game for Marion. And again, as the slide says, keep your eye on it. Sorry. Bethel at Bluefield. Okay, so we talk about teams in the top 25 I don't want to say pretenders. I don't want to say frauds. That's way too strong of a term. But teams that I'm not sure of, right now, just College of Idaho is in there. Marion is in there. And the other team that's in there for me too is Bethel. In my top 25, I've got Bethel down in the teens. I've watched a couple of their games this year. They're not as explosive as they were last year. They're beating teams, but they haven't played a high level of competition yet. And not that Bluefield is world beaters in a top 25 team, but they provided some strong resistance to an undefeated Campbellsville team this week. I think this is a game that, coming in, you see undefeated top 25 versus a 1-3 Bluefield. Okay, don't really pay attention to it. I'm telling you, as the slide says, Pat, keep your eye on it.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my eye on this one. This is going to be good. Yeah, I'm with you. They haven't been tested a heck of a lot. I'm with you. I think this is going to be one that's long travel. That's a hike from the western half of Tennessee to the western half of Virginia. That's far.
Yes, that is not just down the road. That's going to be
that's going to be a challenge, no doubt.
Last week's guest was Bill Reichel of St. Thomas, Florida. We thank him for coming on with us. It was a great interview, great getting to talk to him a little bit. They had an off week. They will play Florida Memorial, who just lost to Cumberland. This is a game, like Coach said, they're separated by 2 miles, 3 miles? Like they see their campus right over there. So this is a rivalry game between these two. And Florida Memorial is going to be keyed up to try to knock off a top 10 team and get their season steered back to the right direction.
Only the megalopolis that is Miami, that you have two campuses like that next to each other that play football. That are, right? This is going to be fun.
I was going to say, it reminds me of like those, you're a Midwest guy, like those softball complexes where you got like the thing in the middle and there's just fields everywhere. I kind of just, in my mind, that's how I picture St. Thomas's and Florida Memorial's campuses.
I'm with you. It's like, do they cross the lines and there's like rumbles and stuff? Like, like the students going at it because they're right next to each other. It's like competing schools. So, that's going to be interesting. And I really think a lot of St. Thomas, watching them, play St. Xavier last week, and going to keep an eye on them moving forward. I think they're a good football team. So that'll be a good one.
I did not intend for the keep your eye on to be as corny as I have now made it.
Well, you're
but now I'm going to do it every week. Keep your eye on. Sorry.
You're from Nebraska. You got to get the corn out, bud.
Yeah, getting ready. We're doing wet corn harvest right now. You got some feeder cattle out there. Get that wet corn out of the field. High moisture corn. You're going to chip it up. You're going to put it in a pile. You're going to feed it to your cattle all winter long.
You got to educate me on that, bud. I've been on a farm once, I think, and I left about an hour because I couldn't handle the smell. So,
I'm just out there like
I'm a city guy. I'm a city guy.
Georgetown's at Reinhardt. So Georgetown, coming off that loss to Alabama A&M, had a bye week. Reinhardt, big win over the University of the Cumberlands. Reinhardt back to 500. This was a game last year that was a heck of a ball game. And if things had gone slightly different for Reinhardt earlier this season, maybe against Southeastern, we'd be talking that this is a top 25 matchup. It's one of those that's just outside of there. The Tigers got to get back on task and see if they can get one against Reinhardt on the road.
I think from a talent standpoint of watching Reinhardt play Cumberlands, I think they are a top 25 team. I do. They don't deserve to be because of what's happened thus far from the results standpoint, but I think the talent's there. I think they're an athletic, fast team as they've always been. I think they're really good. And they beat Georgetown last year. And for some reason, they're going back to Reinhardt. I don't know if it's one of those goofy scheduling things because that game was at Reinhardt last year, I believe.
Was it? Maybe I screwed up the schedule.
I don't know.
Too.
Okay, maybe I don't know.
Because let's just go ahead and say sometimes the accuracy of Jason at 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday might not be solid. No, let's find out. Let's find out if Jason's an idiot here real quick.
But Georgetown, it sounds silly. Again, I know they lost the FCS last week.
It's at Georgetown. I'm an idiot.
You're fine.
I'm so dumb. So dumb. I've let everybody down. No,
you're good, buddy. It's one of those things where, Georgetown, so Montana Tech, you lose to FCS. You can't drop another one. I this early at least, because it's we've got some challenges for Georgetown down the road. And like we've talked about before with Georgetown, we know the type of program that they are. Obviously, talk about blue blood, and we know Coach Oliver, one of the best coaches in the NAIA. They got to kick in gear here. I mean, this has got to be a game that they win at home and get the excitement, get that mojo back in that program. And not saying that this is so far it's been dire. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But if this is a tight game and Reinhardt pulls one out, now you're like, oh boy, we're in one here. This is a game Georgetown needs to win at home. I will tell you. And I think for the remainder of the season and kind of where they want to be and where they probably should be, they got to win this football game. So there's some pressure here in Georgetown.
There's a lot of great football games this week. We thank everybody for coming onto the program here and letting us to break down this week's action and look forward to next week. As always, the top 25 poll from VSN will be out tomorrow, along with the coaches poll. We'll have my picks coming out Monday. Featured story for all the games will be, or the Around the Nation article, I should say, will be out on Wednesday. We've got some athlete profiles we're going to be putting up on the site. So a lot of things happening in NAIA football. We appreciate everybody checking out the last hour of this program as we got through all of the games. Pat, any final NAIA thoughts before I turn it to the best part of the show for you and I?
Exciting games. And again, there wasn't the marquee matchups, but exciting games. Even though we don't have those, those games previewed, it's like, hey, this is going to be the games to watch. They turned out that way, and they were fun. If you get a chance, folks, go back and watch the end of the Reinhardt Cumberland's game. Go back and watch the end of the Marion Lawrence Tech game. You're talking, holy smokes. And then remind me again, the Friends game. Friends and
Kansas Wesleyan.
Wesleyan. Go watch the end of that game, folks. I mean, there's some good ones. And the beauty of live streaming, you can go back and get those on demand and watch them. I recommend it highly. And then we're huge games this week. So hopefully more of the same.
Our only Pat's plea and my plea to all of the NAIA schools out there, please archive your games and keep them available for us to watch outside of the live setting. Please, for Pat and I's sake, it allows us to see so many more NAIA football games and be that much more knowledgeable about the programs that are out there. So please don't just have the live game and then it's off forever. Just please archive them so we can watch them.
It would be nice to have the VSN PJ, the old private jet, fired up. We can hop around to all these games, but it's not reality.
Yeah.
Let's get some sponsorship going here, bud.
Get some sponsorship. I'm going to say get some private jet company to sponsor us.
Yeah, let's go. We'll hop around. I'm on board. I'll take a weekend off. Let's go.
We talk about the Frontier Conference enough. Frontier Airlines.
Hey, now let's do it.
Maybe.
I love going west, baby.
I about said something, but in lieu of the fact that maybe we would try to get them to be a sponsor, I'll stop in my experiences that I've had with said airline. With that said, it's a good transition into Pat and my favorite part of the show where we give you overtime. That means the NAIA straight football portion of this show. We've talked about it. We've belabored it. We've beat it to death. And now Pat and I get an opportunity to catch up for 10 minutes because what you might not realize about Pat and I, although we're good friends, we're also, 40-plus-year-old men. We don't text and talk to one another really at all during the week. We've got things going on. We have real jobs. So we take this opportunity to go into overtime and just kind of talk about whatever. If you've got questions, throw them at us. But
absolutely, let's see questions talking football. I'm gonna say this about you, Jason. You're a good friend. I'm gonna give people an idea behind the scenes. The amount of time you put into this stuff is awesome. This is all Jason, folks. I do nothing. He calls me and says, "This is what we're doing." I said, "Yes, sir. I'll watch some games and be knowledgeable at least to some level about it." And I'm a guy that can talk to anyone, talk to a house plant. So I watch and we talk. So you do a great job, buddy. And it's so great to see. And I guess I'm pumping your tires up here a little bit, but you deserve it. You do a great job. And again, your time commitment into it and your passion for it is wonderful. It takes me back to 20 years ago, when you first started this thing. And I was there, as a young kid, we're roughly the same age, and I got a good front row seat for it. And it's so fun to do this again now as, middle-aged guys, and we got kids and real jobs and demanding jobs. I mean, you're in a management position and selling stuff that I know nothing about, but and I've got kids that are older that are in activities and things. So this is a passion project, and I just respect the heck out of you for doing this, and you do a wonderful job. And I do appreciate you bringing me along because I do enjoy it. I do. I look forward to it every Sunday night.
So 20 years ago, before we kind of got into the college fans takeover and all that, the thing I always wanted was like, I just want somebody that like understands NAI football, that I don't have to explain it to, that I could do a show with. And I got to know you, and then, you got out of the world of coaching. So like the marriage for that part has been fantastic. And it's funny you mentioned like all the amount of time you put into this. The that's true. That is true. I do put a lot of time into it, but I don't put any more time into this than somebody who's like an uber Division I fan, somebody that's a fan of, Notre Dame, somebody that's a fan of Alabama, that's just, they're checking the message boards, they're watching this, they know all the, I don't like, I largely look at that level from, 1,000 feet away, make some guesses, make some horrible bets every week because I can't help myself. It's like, oh, I don't know. Wyoming's played pretty good, and actually, no, Wyoming's played terrible. But surely, North Texas won't beat them by 6.5 this week. Yeah, they did. Should have bet that. Didn't. It's like, yeah, I'm looking at North Texas, Wyoming. If you have any question as to the level of the problem on this side of the camera,
Man, I give a great wife. My wife would kill me if you knew I spent money on gambling North Texas.
it's not big. It's like, it's that little $10 taste to keep you in there. That's what we're doing. But so all. This is true. I'm not paying for hockey yet.
Oh boy.
Hopefully that's not an expense for me. But it goes back to like all that time and passion and effort that everybody puts into that level. I just do that. Like I was at my parents' farm this weekend, and my dad was watching Oklahoma, Tennessee, like in the one living room. I was in the other one. I had my laptop out, and up on the screen I was, watching whatever the games were last night, Kansas Wesleyan Friends and Texas Wesleyan, Oklahoma Panhandle. And while I'm watching those, I've got the slides up. I'm going through, doing the box scores, checking them out. So I'm just sitting there watching football like everybody else. The real test will come in about 4 weeks when the wife and I are taking a weekend trip to Vegas.
Hey, nice.
Going out there on a Friday, coming back on a Monday, still planning on doing the show on that Sunday. So that will be interesting to see how well prepared I am.
I want to see give me a backdrop though. We need something in the background, some lights, and make us all jealous that you're in Vegas and we're our local spots.
I'm going to reach out to a couple places and just say, hey, I do this show every Sunday night. I don't need anything but a place to sit and do it. Can I do it here? They're all going to say no, but I'm going to ask a couple places at least.
I'm telling you, what's the new the Ferris wheel? It's like the big
the link.
Yeah, but like the thing, just I think the computer up there, and you're like on top of like
yes.
What is it? The big roller is a high roller.
Oh, high roller in the link. Yeah.
Doing the show, just looking over Vegas. That's
there you go. Be on top of the stratosphere.
Fremont.
Yeah, well, we're going to stay on Fremont. We're going to do
by the way,
Golden
great
Nugget.
Call. To me, Fremont is classic.
Yes.
I love it. It's like old school. To me, it's like adult spring break.
Yes.
It is. I love it. I love Fremont. My wife and I, we rave about it. It's where we want to be too. I'm with you.
On our drive this week back to Nebraska, the wife and I were talking, and I was like, hey, let's make a pledge now for when we do this trip to Vegas in a month. Let's spend no time on the Strip. Let's not go. Let's just do Old Vegas. Let's do the other casinos. Let's do Red Rocks. Let's do the M. Let's, if we're going to go, because I mean, like, oh, the slot machines here, they're luckier than here. They're the same slot machines taking all your money. Every dollar that you earned. Yeah.
I'm a history guy. I love Old Vegas. I think it's cool.
Have you done the Mob Museum in Vegas?
I have. I've not had enough time. I've been there only a handful of times. I've probably not been there as many times as you have. And the thing is, my wife and I are show people. My wife loves. I'm a big music guy. Anytime I can see music, I've got to see a show at the Sphere. Right now, the Eagles are playing there. I would give anything to get out there and go see the Eagles. It's hockey season. I'm not going anywhere. But that'd be one for sure. If like the Stones would ever play, or like some other like classic band. I'm a big rock guy, as you know.
Yeah.
Metallica, somebody like that. I would. I've heard the Sphere experience, like you two just played, is unbelievable. I hear. So that'd be one for sure. I'd love to go back for.
Yeah, I'm a big music guy too. Love it. There's a lot of different shows that I've seen. A surprisingly good show because the wife's a big fan, and I'm a casual. but we saw Reba McEntire and Brooks and Dunn in Caesars in their, the Caesars
The residency
thing.
there.
Yeah, the
Was it residency or was it?
Yeah, it was the last night of their residency, and they'd been playing there forever. That was a great show. Would highly recommend.
I was sad. My first concert of all time, a pretty cool first concert experience. Aerosmith. Saw them,
nice.
and they had a residency. I wanted to go see them again, kind of like the nostalgic type thing, and they retired. They're done. So missed that opportunity. But yeah, that was my first concert back many, many years ago.
Yeah, the whole plan originally was to do Chiefs Raiders. It's the weekend of Chiefs Raiders, and I'm a Raiders fan. I've been in the new stadium a couple times. My brother and I went to. My brother's an Eagles fan. We saw Eagles Raiders there. Tickets weren't horrible. They're much higher priced than most NFL games. And then the last time the wife and I went, we did Patriots Raiders, and that was the game where they like picked off the pass last play. Ran it into the end zone. They were throwing down Mac Jones and all that. So it was an awesome game, awesome experience. But like looking at borderline, like way up in the top tickets, you're talking, $500 for nosebleeds. And I'm looking at her going, I love the Raiders. The intent was to go to this game. Let's go to a cool place and watch the game.
Sure.
Get me in Circus Swim looking like a beached whale. Margarita up here, cold beer here. Yeah. But
that reminds me, true story. This is crazy. So we were in Detroit for a big hockey weekend. This is kind of kickoff for the season. I am probably 25 miles as the crow flies from the big house. I'm looking at tickets, and I wanted to go see Lawrence Tech and Marion, but the schedule just didn't work out for really either one. $35 I could have gone to the game and a third-party ticket. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That is insane.
I don't know if Michigan folks dump their tickets because they're the Texas situation. I don't know. I'm telling you, I could have gone to the big house, paid probably 3 times for parking as a ticket to get in the game to see SC. Talk about blue bloods, the blue bloods. Have only played in the Rose Bowl. I think they played in the regular season maybe in the 50s. So unbelievable. And like where I was staying in Detroit, it was like all SC people. I mean, it's like by the way, SC folks, it's like a cult, man. They're walking around, it's fight on everywhere. I mean, everywhere we go, they're all talking to each other, and they're all in their Cardinal. It's cool, man. I'm talking to people from Southern California. And I mean, at Buddy's Pizza. If you're going to Detroit, Buddy's Pizza, the Detroit style pizza, the way to go. By the way, I gained 10 pounds this weekend at least.
Awesome. Same.
I find all the spots. But anyway, so it's literally like an SC bar. My son and I, after a hockey game, are eating pizza. It's like SC, like everyone. It was cool. So, but like $33, man. To get in the game is crazy. And then being Michigan won the game. So pretty cool.
That's awesome. All right. We've probably done enough overtime. Cool. We probably have spouses that are like hearing this conversation from a distance go, are they still on? Are they still talking right now?
Help get the kids to bed. They got school tomorrow. What's wrong?
Yeah, same here. I've got a 1-year-old whose bedtime will be with anywhere from the next 15 minutes to the next hour. So we'll see how that goes.
Buddy, great job, man. And awesome. Everything you do, you're doing the farming thing, seeing family, you still knock out this show. You do it top notch, and great job, man, as always.
I tell you what, technology is a great thing, and it allows us to continue to do this each and every week.
Thank you, live streamers. Keep it up.
Yeah, thanks everybody for checking us out. Tell your friends to like and subscribe. That's going to do it for the show. That guy is Pat Donley. I'm Jason Dannelly. This has been NAI Football with Dannelly and Donley from the Victory Sports Network. Have a great week. We'll see you next weekend.